Why do you think that there has been so much shame around this topic when it's literally one of the most natural things in the world?
Ever you see sex on TV, in the movies, that is always spontaneous desire. It's just kind of like that out of nowhere, ooh, sex sounds good kind of feeling. So most of us think that that's how desire is supposed to happen. Research shows that 75% of women have the other kind of desire, which is responsive desire. And that's the exact opposite. Our bodies feel that desire first and the mental arousal follows.
What do you get when you bring together the #1 sexuality podcast on Apple charts and the #1 nutrition podcast on the Apple charts? We've been really excited about this episode. We mentioned this to you before, Vanessa, and we think that this might actually be one of the most popular episodes of the season because anytime we talk about sex, people kind of love it.
I'm so excited to be here, and I hope it can be one of the most popular ones. I would think we're also desperate for open, honest, real, genuinely useful conversations about sex. So I can't wait to dive in today.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with Vanessa, she is a sex therapist, an instant New York Times bestselling author of her book, Sex Talks, The 5 Conversations That Will Transform Your Love Life, which she co-wrote with her husband and partner in crime, Xander Marin. Now, Vanessa is here because she's really going to help us kick the shame out of the bedroom, which we don't want to be having, so we can really start feeling more connection, more pleasure, more joy. You may have seen Vanessa in a few places, the Oprah magazine, maybe Harper's Bazaar, maybe Vogue, maybe saw her in Goop, maybe the New York Times, or maybe you've seen her over on Instagram at Vanessa and Xander on their #1 sexuality podcast, Pillow Talks. She's in a few places around. We thought we'd hang out with her today and have a really honest and open conversation about sex because, as you know, Vanessa, sex has not been a widely talked about topic, especially for women. It's been very, very taboo.
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying earlier. I think most of us, we really want to have these conversations. Often we hear from people in our community who say, I'm not even talking about this with my closest girlfriend. Even those really tight relationships, we still feel that sense of nervousness, shame, and embarrassment. I'm really, really here to try to dismantle that shame.
Why do you think that there has been so much shame around this topic when it's literally one of the most natural things in the world?
I mean, that goes back decades and centuries of history. I mean, pretty much all of history with some rare exceptions. We've had pretty negative views about sex, negative relationships with sex. I know a lot of people feel like something's wrong with them, feel bad about themselves. I like to put in that broader context of we have not been able to deal with this as a society for centuries. Of course, you're struggling with it personally too.
So that's why we brought you on the show today, so we can start taking away that taboo. Let's kind of start with that introductory where I think a good starting point would be the sex that we see on TV and in movies and how it's so glamorized, what it's really like in real life. Because I think so often that's the only example that we see of sex, but that's not always the real case.
Most of us get all of our sex education from TV, the movies, and porn. And we might rationally understand, okay, that's a movie. Sure, they've got a director there and people doing the lighting and making sure everything's, all coordinated. We might rationally understand maybe that's not how sex really works in real life. The problem is we're seeing those scenes over and over and over again, literally thousands of times. And when we have no other information, of course, we're going to start to internalize how sex should look like, or it would be really fun if sex was like that. We really start to create this story in our head. I call it the fucking fairy tale. We get the fairy tale version of romance, the white knight in armor who comes and sweeps you off your feet. This is kind of the fucking fairy tale of this glamorized version of what we think sex is supposed to look like.
I think that's amazing because that's what it is. It really ends up being, if we compare that to social media of today, because of our clients dealing with acne sufferers, that's seeing everyone through filtered lenses, through filters. It's the exact same thing, just applied to your sex life.
Absolutely. And again, I don't blame anybody for internalizing it. I internalized that too. I had my own ideas of what sex was supposed to look like, my own pressures that I put on myself.
I was chatting with Katie and I said, hey, you know what? I'm wondering what's going on with these generational differences with regards to sex because I have Gen Z children and I find it's less predominant or talked about or even cared for. It's not like there's not a desire with burning teenage hormones or anything like that. It's not as in your face. When I was a kid, of course, there wasn't social media. Nobody could nab us. It was a big deal. Now I'm seeing it's not really a big deal. And I'm just wondering, is this in my head? Am I just delusional and a mom and I don't want to think about it? Or is this legit millennials, what is Xers, Zs.
We do have evidence showing that Gen Z is having less sex than any generation for a very, very long time. In general, they tend to be a bit more on the conservative side. And when it comes to sex, they are not having as much sex. They're not having as much exploration in the sex that they're having. And when you ask Gen Zers about their relationship with sex, what they're reporting back is they feel so terrified about being called out for being bad in bed on social media that it's created this horrible performance anxiety for them that's actually causing them to avoid sex altogether.
I'm a millennial. I didn't grow up with the internet. Wouldn't even pass my mind that thought process.
I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I did not grow up with social media. I was awkward and insecure enough growing up. I couldn't imagine having that added layer of also thinking about people sharing what I was like in bed on Snapchat.
Thought never would have even crossed my mind.
It does happen a lot. Genitalia pictures, a lot.
That is much more common.
Add me as a friend. Next little picture that comes up is
Unsolicited photos.
It's not that it's dumbed down or it's not there. It's just that's the missing piece, is that social media where they don't want to be condemned. They don't want to be announced as being that person. There's free floating pictures and those don't go around. That was my burning question because I have teenage daughters.
We're getting ready for the talk.
I'm getting ready for the talk and all this stuff. Maybe I'll use that as leverage now. Do you really want this on social?
I can say when it comes to the talk, I'll say this for you, Katie. I really recommend having the talk as young as you can. Most parents have this idea of most kids are having sex when they're in their late teens. All right, maybe around 16 or so, I'll have the talk with my kids. It's really important to start talking about sex with your kids as early as you can. There are age-appropriate conversations you can have with 5-year-olds. You're not getting into all the details, just helping them learn about their bodies, learn autonomy, learn consent. There are great conversations that you can have. We actually have an entire course specifically for parents about how to start having those conversations.
Well, I'll be adding that to cart because I have 2 little boys. I was going to leave that to my husband, but I guess I'll be the proactive one. I never really thought about it, that you can have those autonomy and those types of conversations with younger children versus it kind of, again, that almost causes it to be a taboo topic because it's like, oh, I don't want to, it was never talked about in my house. Then it kind of just domino effects to the rest of their life.
And it's easier for you as a parent to think about it rather than thinking about it as the talk, the one singular talk. That's a lot of pressure. I got to get it right. What am I going to say? There's so much information. What if they don't want to hear it? What if the time is wrong? Like that's so much pressure to have one conversation. If you think of it as it's not a talk, a series of talks across their entire lifetime. And some of these talks can be 2 minutes. It doesn't need to be a big, heavy thing. That also feels easier for you as a parent. It can be awkward and weird if I screw up this one little chat. We're talking about it next month too. It's not a big deal.
I love that we kind of started on the parent talk. Now we're going to be covering a lot of things because Cris and I, we had a lot of questions since we're already in kind of the parent realm. Obviously, both Cris and I are both opposite ends of the spectrum. I have little children. She has teenagers. When it comes to sex as a parent, it's different ways to be navigating because as a parents of young children, we are exhausted by the end of the day. We are tired. We've done all of the things. On Chris's end, she has older kids. They understand. They hear things. They stay up late. So how do you navigate sex and parenthood?
Well, let's start with early parenthood because I think parents are set up for failure from the very beginning. This is not something that you talk about when you become a parent. Like, how do we maintain that connection between ourselves? How do we keep that spark alive? And it's such an enormous transition to go from just the two of you into expanding your family. Most parents are just completely unprepared for it. The only thing you get is the 6-week medical checkup where your doctor might say, okay, you probably won't die if you start having sex again. That doesn't say anything about, I'm not feeling any desire for it. We don't have the time for it. We're exhausted. I think it's really important for parents to recognize that it's a challenge and be gentle on yourselves and recognize you weren't given any tools, resources, or support. There are tools and resources and support available. One of the main things that we talk about with young parents is trying to maintain a thread of connection between the two of you because parenting exhausting, it's chaotic, it's all consuming, and the vast majority of couples feel like they start to move more into that roommate direction rather than feeling like romantic partners. I'm forgetting the exact number. I know there's research on parents reporting back on relationship satisfaction, and I believe it was 67% of parents said that their relationship satisfaction plummeted after having kids. You're definitely not alone if you're feeling disconnected. I want to find a way to maintain a little thread of connection between you and your partner because oftentimes what happens is there is no connection. You feel like your relationship is very transactional. You're just talking about the logistics and trying to survive. And then you get into the bedroom at the end of the night and you're not feeling like, great, I'm so excited to jump into bed and start having sex with you. When we feel disconnected, we often don't want to have sex with each other. Finding some sort of way to keep that connection. I'm all about being practical, doing like, what are the things that I can do, the smallest thing that I can do to get the maximum bang for my buck. A couple of things that are really helpful. Number one is gratitude. Gratitude has actually been found to be the number one predictor of marital satisfaction. And what I love about gratitude is free, it's fast, it's easy, it feels good on both ends to give and to receive it. And it literally can take 2 seconds. Just taking that moment to call out something that you appreciate about your partner. Hey, I saw that you just did the dishes without being asked. I really appreciate that. Hey, you tackled bedtime duty. God, that made me so appreciative of you. Have I told you lately how much I love your smile? It's just those little things that really help us still feel connected to our partner. Another one is non-sexual touch. A lot of couples start to develop this pattern where we really only touch each other around sex. As a lead up to sex or during sex itself, we start to get almost hypervigilant to touch. And this can be especially a powerful dynamic that comes with moms, with new moms, when you're already feeling kind of touched out because you've got a tiny human clinging to you all day long. You start to get this sense that, oh, my partner's just coming in to touch me because they want something from me. This is just yet another person who is wanting something from me. So we need to break that connection. I actually call it the bristle reaction because maybe you guys have felt that, like, your partner touches you and you just feel your whole body kind of recoil. Don't touch me. And it's a weird experience for a lot of people. I know I've experienced it with my husband, Xander. How am I having this strong of a reaction to the person that I love the most in this world? That's what happens when we create that pattern that touches only around sex. We have to break that pattern and actually do more touch that's not at all related to sex. We have great research showing that a 20 to 30 second hug can be really beneficial for couples. That's the exact time frame our bodies need to release oxytocin. That's the hormone that promotes a sense of bonding, trust with our partners. 20 to 30 second hug once a day doesn't take very long at all, but it really can make a huge difference.
I love that these were really easy to do things. A gratitude practice, free and easy to do. You can do that when you guys have put the kids to bed. You get those like 15 minutes together by yourself at the end of the day. Easy to do. A 20-second hug. Like, these are easy things that you can be fitting into the busyness of parenting.
And this would be just another little interlude is when you're going in for the hug, again, it would be a non-sexual context hug. I had this conversation with my husband. Let's be honest. This is what happened. I said, listen, when I bend over for to load the dishwasher, it's not an invitation. So these small things. So I know what you're saying. It's just when that touch comes in, you're like, oh, or you know what I mean? Like it's always that want. Just give me a hug and let's move on. I like it. He's listening to this.
And oftentimes, so what you're describing is a super common dynamic. It's always around the freaking dishwasher. It's like the butt slap around the dishwasher or like the boob honk when you're washing the dishes. I swear it happens in the kitchen like 90% of the time.
It's always when our hands are busy. So it's like we can't fight back.
Super irritating. We've actually polled women about that. We polled the boob honk and we said, are there any women out there who actually like the boob honk? And there were like 3 who wrote in and said it's kind of funny sometimes. Pretty much every woman said no. I think what's happening in those situations is partners are feeling touch starved. So they're going in these opportunities where they're like, I'm just going to try something here. And they're doing it in ways where they can have a little plausible deniability. So if you're like, oh, leave me alone, like stop doing that. They can say, oh, I was just joking. You know, lighten up, take it easy. Rather than the vulnerability of saying, I miss you. I want to connect with you. Or like going in for a vulnerable kind of contact with you, like an actual genuine hug. Instead, we resort to, doing it in these kind of jokey ways, which just isn't helping anybody.
I think that's such a great conversation to have because a lot of men don't feel comfortable being vulnerable. They can be funny and they can do these things where they can go in and see, are they going to respond this way to get the attention that I want?
Initiation happens a lot in that way too. The same thing with the plausible deniability. Oh, I wasn't trying to initiate. I was just joking. And I know that you were trying to initiate. Like, don't, I'm not an idiot. We're too scared of that vulnerability to really put ourselves out there. We're creating these really harmful loops with our partner that neither partner actually enjoys at all.
And we often see so much that if they are starved for that touch, the partner is starved for that touch. Many women are struggling with a low libido, especially our acne clients. It's probably one of the number one things they say is, I have a low libido. I just don't feel like being intimate with my partner. This is one question I have based from a personal experience because for years I thought I had a low libido. I just wasn't interested in it. It just had to be something hormonal. For me, it ended up being, I actually didn't know what I liked. And I was kind kind of just bored with the vanilla sex until I
Mhm.
started to discover that, oh, no, I actually like this. And maybe if we tried this. And I found that it wasn't that I had a low libido. I just didn't know what I liked.
Let me ask you guys something. Okay, have you ever woken up and just found yourself absolutely craving a bowl of overly steamed, mushy broccoli?
Literally never.
Do you think anything's wrong with you? Why don't you ever want overly steamed, mushy broccoli?
I've never once thought that, but I love this analogy already.
We have to be real. A lot of us are having sex that is the equivalent of some overly steamed, mushy broccoli, beating ourselves up for not wanting more of it. This is the number one question that we ask people when they say, I have a low libido. I say, well, okay, tell me about the sex that you're having. Is it sex that's worth craving? We have to connect pleasure and desire in that way. So many of us are so focused on desire, it's really easy to go to this place of beating ourselves up, thinking something's wrong with us. Why don't I want sex? Something's wrong with me. We're not looking at the pleasure. But if we are not enjoying the experience we're having, it makes zero sense to crave it.
Being nutritionists, we love this analogy because it
Yeah.
makes absolute perfect sense. We're always telling our clients, of course you don't vegetables. You've been eating canned peas out of a can for all of these years. But when you flavor it properly, you add the spices, you add the lemon and the garlic, you're actually going to
Yep.
crave and want to eat that. And that's the exact same thing with sex.
We have to look at the experience. We have to look at the pleasure. That is so much more important. That's the root issue.
We do realize, okay, it's just not, I haven't found what I like. You know, maybe it's a little too vanilla. It's not, I want to add some spices to it. How do you start to get comfortable asking for what you, because it can be really hard. It is another vulnerable conversation to have.
I actually hate the question, what do you want or what do you like? I think it's too big of a question. If you were to ask me, like, what do you like during sex? I would kind of freeze up a little bit. I don't know. Where do I start? What do I describe? Are we talking about the acts themselves? What is it we're talking about? It puts this pressure on me of, I've got to write you a manifesto. If my husband, Xander, says, hey, what do you want to do tonight? I feel like I've got to write out a list for him of like, okay, first you do this, and then you do that, and then this. If you do this plan and follow it exactly, I'm guaranteed to have an orgasm. And that feels like a lot of pressure for me, especially with women. A lot of us haven't had super pleasurable experiences. So it's sort of, it's like, how do I even begin describing what I want when I haven't had that experience? I don't know how to start. Instead, what I recommend people do is start tuning in to the experience itself and get a sense of what you are enjoying in the moment. Don't put this pressure on yourself to just automatically know what you like and want. We've got to treat it more as an experiment that we do in the moment. I have this little game that I like to play called the eye exam test. So you know how when you go get your, I don't know if you guys have had your eyes tested, they show you like two different slides. Which one is more in focus, one or two? And when you just have those two variables in front of you, it's really easy to pick. Oh yeah, one's way more clear. Rather than if you, let's say you went in to get an eye exam, describe your vision problems or describe the vision you want to have. So when you have those like just two variables, it's much easier to pick. We can do this during sex too. You can have your partner, let's say they're like touching your back, have them touch it in two different ways. Maybe one is a firm massage that they're giving, and the second time is they're just kind of lightly tickling your back. What do you like better, one or two? You're not saying number one is the perfect way to touch my back. Do only that for all of eternity. I think I like one a little bit better. And you can move on, compare one to a different type of touch. This way that you're playing around with it, you're making a game out of it, and that helps you be more in tune in the moment, what the sensations actually feel like.
That is probably the least scariest way to do it. That is so brilliant because it's, do I like A or do I like B? And it doesn't seem this scary conversation. I was actually thinking maybe could we try this? It's really between one and two.
You can do this with touch outside of the bedroom too. If you're really feeling nervous, you can do it fully clothed. You just get used to like playing this little game with each other, and then it makes it feel more comfortable to bring it into the bedroom too. We have, part of our business is we love teaching people how to actually have sex because we all want to be great at sex. We want to be having great sex. Where do we learn? Technique anywhere. So we have like our ultimate foreplay guides, we have the ultimate sex guide, and we have a ton of techniques that you can actually try with your partner. And we teach the same game in those guides. Try out these two techniques and see which one do you like best. So not only are you getting the framework of that game, but you're also getting the specific techniques to try out so you don't feel like you have to make it up out of nowhere.
I think this should just be part of growing up education, is how to properly have sex, because you're so right, Vanessa. It's not like you're getting a university elective on how to have sex properly. Well, maybe if you're training to be a sex therapist, you might. For the average person, there's really
Yeah.
nowhere to go to get that type of education.
Trying to be an amazing cook and you've never seen a recipe, you've never taken a lesson, you're just sitting there in the kitchen like, I have these ingredients, I'm not sure what to do. We need to like see it's the same way. We haven't been given the opportunity to learn. We can't put all this pressure on ourselves to be so good at it if we never had any tools.
100%. You're not going to open a Michelin star restaurant if you've never gone to culinary school.
If we taught nutrition from kindergarten and we talk age appropriate sex from kindergarten, where would we be? These are natural acts. To consume food is a natural for sustainability of life. Sexual contact or even contact is also natural. Therefore, we have two naturals that we really could be monopolizing on in our regular education system to advance us just as a whole. We would be so happy. A society that of just happy people walking around.
I actually like to say that sex is the most natural, unnatural act. The act of sex itself is totally natural. We all do it. We've been doing it for centuries. When people hear the word natural, it puts this pressure on I should just automatically know what to do. We should just get in the bedroom and just click. Everything should flow. And that doesn't happen. If we want to have great sex, there's actually a lot of effort behind it. Learning the techniques, having the tough conversations, being present in the moment, really being open and vulnerable with your partner.
Here's one of my other questions. Say my partner, my husband comes to me and says, "Oh, I just want you to talk dirty to me." And I'm like, "Say what?" But those are the things too, even with dealing with the clients, I don't really, and with the confidence too. So it's a whole kit and caboodle. I appreciate that. Even when the clients are coming in and my husband like, I don't really have libido. And I'm like, well, do you align? Right? Like we ask a few questions. We don't get into the nitty gritty. This is the big one that comes up is the mismatched desires of the couples.
This is one of the most common questions that we get too. So let's flip this around first. Every couple has mismatched desire. You're two different people. Of course, you're going to have different libidos. Of course, you're going to want sex at different times in different ways. It's just being human. I'll keep the food comparisons rolling because I always love a food comparison. And I know it ties in our work.
Perfect.
When we get in relationships with our partner, we're not freaking out over slightly different food preferences. My husband Xander loves Chinese food and I'm not a huge fan. I wasn't freaking out like, oh my God, guys, everything else is perfect, but he loves Chinese food. We get ourselves really worked up about these perceived incompatibilities or mismatched libidos when it comes to sex. That's just a reality for every couple. We're different people. We kind of got to start with normalizing it's okay to have different libidos. Everybody does. Once we let go of the anxiety of wondering like, is this really the right person? Are we compatible? What's going on with us? Then we clear out all this energy to actually focus on, okay, cool. We're different people. How do we navigate the differences in what we both want?
That's the thing is you're never going to have two people with identical likes and dislikes. So being able to find that navigation, I think is really, really helpful. And when we are looking at, say, reasons why people just aren't having sex in general, you're in that spot in your relationship where you're not having sex. How do we get through there in order to enjoy the actual act?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about desire. Oftentimes what happens in couples, let's say we have one partner initiating sex with the other. And I'll use myself as an example. When Xander initiates sex with me, it often feels to me a pop quiz. It's sort of this like, oh, whoa, you want to have sex right now? Like I wasn't even thinking about sex right now. And I feel like I'm behind and like I've already kind of lost in a way. In previous seasons of our relationship, it was really easy for me to just have this knee-jerk reaction of turning him down. I wasn't thinking about it. Like, no, I don't want you right now. And I think that's what the vast majority of couples experience. If your partner initiates with you in a moment that you're not interested in it, you have that same feeling, you want to turn them down, and we go spiraling off into we have mismatched libidos. We never seem to want it at the same time. I actually think that we are putting way too much pressure on ourselves and way too much pressure on desire. It would be so weird if every single time one of you initiated sex, the other one was, oh my God, you read my mind. I was magically horny in this exact moment. That would be weird. He would often initiate asking me like, do you want to have sex right now? And I'd be like, no, I don't actually want. We changed the question around to, are you open to having sex? Or are you open to being turned on? Open to getting turned on? And for me, just that one word swap, that helped me recognize I'm not agreeing to him like, yes, I'm wildly horny in the exact same moment that you happen to be horny. I'm just saying I'm willing to connect with you. I'm open to the possibility of it. There are a couple of key things that had to be in place for that. Number one, I had to know my pleasure was important. I had to know that I was going to have a good experience. If you're not having a good experience during sex, don't force force yourself to be having sex when you don't want to have it. He cares about my pleasure. We work together as a team. We make sure I have a good time. We also work at maintaining that thread of connection between the two of us. So I don't feel he's only touching me because he wants sex. He's only paying attention to me because he wants something. Like I feel that connection to him. With that kind of like foundation in place, I started realizing openness is so much more valuable than the desire. It was helping us connect with each other so much more frequently, really lower the bar of pressure. And it also feeds into the two different desire types. Have you guys ever heard of this before? So most people don't know there are actually two different sex drive types, and they boil down to where we feel desire first. We can feel desire in two places. Mentally, that's the idea of sex sounds good. And we can feel desire physically. Our bodies are aroused, they're starting to feel good, starting to prepare for having even more sex. These two types boil down to which comes first. So the first type is spontaneous desire, and that's when you feel the mental desire first, physical arousal follows. So whenever you see sex on TV in the movies, that is always spontaneous desire. It's just kind of like that out of nowhere, ooh, sex sounds good kind of feeling. So most of us think that that's how desire is supposed to happen. Research shows that 75% of women have the other kind of desire, which is responsive desire. And that's the exact opposite. Our bodies feel that desire first and the mental arousal follows. Classic way of knowing that you might have responsive desire. If you've ever caught yourself in the middle of sex or even at the end of sex thinking, this is fun. Why do I seem to never want this? That's responsive desire because your body just needed to feel good first before the mental desire came up. I mentioned earlier that Xander used to initiate by saying, do you want to have sex? If you ask that question to someone with responsive desire, 99 times out of 100, the answer is going to be no, because you haven't had any sort of physical stimulation yet. Your desire hasn't had anything to like respond to. That's another great reason, especially with women, to change that question around. It's not, are you turned on right now? Because that's never going to be the case for someone with responsive desire. Are you open to the possibility of being turned on once we get started?
I love that because Cris is really big on words. She's like the word, she will pick out little individual words. And you're so right that just that one shift really takes away that pressure of, well, no, I was just going through my to-do list and what I have to do my emails tomorrow. But I love that it's, are you open?
It really makes such a big difference.
So Cris, how about we talk a little bit about the length of foreplay or stimulation?
I always say men are automatic cars and women are manuals. You were saying in the desires, it's like we go from first to second. It's like making a pie. Women want the pie. Men are like, let me just eat the apple now. And maybe it's not in all cases, just usually what I hear through clients constantly, it's that's kind of the interconnection between them. If we're going between the different desires and stuff, what is the length? People say foreplay. I like the word stimulation. Everything's about that nervous system, oxytocin. It's about the release of chemicals. And if I'm not a geek, then I mean, I'd probably use foreplay. What about the length of the stimulation needed between, say, men or women? Or how does that work differently between each?
I have the ultimate foreplay guides. I actually say on page 1 of the guides, I hate the word foreplay. I hate that word because it implies that these acts are somehow lesser than, or they're just the appetizer. They're the thing that we kind of like scoot through for a few seconds. We move on to the main course, the main event. And for male-female couples, that's intercourse. The reality is, I actually don't think that men's needs are really all that different from women's needs. What it really boils down to is we both need stimulation of the parts of our bodies that are hardwired to feel the most pleasure, hardwired to feel the most sensation. For a man, that's a penis. For a woman, it's the clitoris. I'll science geek out on you for a second. The penis and the clitoris are actually biological equivalents. Most people don't know when we are fetuses in the womb, we start off essentially as the same little blob. And it's not until around 8 to 11 weeks that we start differentiating our genitals. You can take a ball of clay and you could make it into a bowl, or you could make it into a plate. It's the same ball of clay. You're making it into different structures. That's what the penis and the clitoris. And actually, the clitoris is even way more sensitive than the penis. The clitoris has about 10,000 nerve endings. The penis has 2,000 to 3,000 nerve endings. So we have way more sensitivity. Now, the problem is that in male-female relationships, we've been taught to believe that intercourse is the main event. It's the home run. It's the big deal. When you're having intercourse, the man's getting stimulation of the part of his body that is the most sensitive, and the woman is getting stimulation in the vagina, which does not have very many nerve endings, is not hardwired to feel a lot of sensation. Think about childbirth. Like, we don't want this to be an exquisitely sensitive place. The comparison that I love to make is that from a nerve ending standpoint, intercourse for a woman playing with a man's balls. It might be fun, it might feel good, but it's not anywhere near enough stimulation to lead to orgasm. The unfortunate thing is that most women don't know this. We're thinking of intercourse as this is supposed to be the main event, this is supposed to be the thing. Many of us are over here thinking, oh, look, ever orgasm from it. Or even a lot of women, I don't feel very much. It's intimate, it's connecting. I like that closeness. Physically, I don't feel that much. We've polled our audience, and 91% of women said that intercourse was not the most pleasurable activity for them. And there is bigger research showing that only about 10 to 15% of women can have orgasms from intercourse alone. To loop this all back to the foreplay, this is why I hate that word, because foreplay is sex. Foreplay is the stimulation of the parts of our body that is most sensitive. Like, we don't put that same pressure on men that they need to have orgasms from some other part of their body that doesn't have a ton of nerve endings, doesn't have a ton of sensation. We've got to prioritize the clitoral contact in the exact same way that we prioritize penile contact.
I think that's one of the best descriptions I've ever heard on this topic. If women and men and everybody was just taught this, again, we were taught this in our sex education when we were much younger, I feel like so many more women especially might enjoy sex more because they just didn't realize, based on what we see in movies and TV, you always see that it's from penetration. That stat is incredible.
I fell for it too. I was so interested in this career, in this field for many, many years. I faked my own orgasms because I felt like something was wrong with me. Something was broken for me. Why am I not orgasming from penetration alone? Something must be wrong. I faked for years and years and years, even as I was starting to explore this field. So I get it. And that's why I'm so passionate now about spreading the truth for women.
And you want to know what? I think that was one of my reasons. Like, my husband and I have been together for 15 years. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, it's so fun and exciting. So it's easy to orgasm. And as you progress through your relationship, you kind of just get bored. Cause I'm like, well, this isn't fun for me because based on all the movies, you're supposed to be able to have orgasm just from penetration. But it's so true. The fact that it's such a rare thing to happen for women. When you start to realize that clitoral stimulation can really boost the orgasms, I think that's like a missing piece for a lot of women.
We would never imagine a man and a woman having sex and the man's having zero touch or stimulation of his penis. Like, the penis is completely out of the equation. It's unfathomable to think of that. There are so many women who are having that kind of sex. Here's the part of our body that is hardwired to feel the most pleasure, that has way more pleasure than his penis. We are completely ignoring it the entire time. And on top of that, feeling something's wrong with us, we're broken.
Yet I think just the comparison of the nerve endings between the clitoris and the penis, it makes so much sense when you hear that. Of course, I'm not orgasming from penetration. There's no nerve endings like there is with the clitoris.
I regularly go searching for scientific studies to see if I can track down, like, how many nerve endings does the vagina have? And I still haven't been able to find like an accurate tally.
It'd be nice if we had more studies on women and health in general.
In general, oh my gosh.
We deal with acne sufferers. We're dealing with women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s. And they are struggling, the majority of them, with very low confidence, very low self-esteem. They already don't feel comfortable in their own skin. And for me, when I was dealing with acne in my early 20s, I also had body acne. So I didn't feel like being intimate with my husband because I didn't feel sexy, even though he's like, I don't care. Like, I know you don't care, but I care. How can women who are having those body image issues still enjoy the act of sex?
I first just want to start with validating that experience because it makes perfect sense. If you're feeling that self-consciousness, if you're going through that struggle, it makes perfect sense. And that being said, I really, truly do believe that pleasure is the antidote. When we recognize the pleasure that our body is capable of feeling, I think that that really helps us overcome so many of the other challenges that can come up in the bedroom. And the amazing thing about pleasure is that your body is capable of feeling pleasure regardless of what it looks. If you're in an active breakout, if you're having the worst acne you've had of your life, you're still capable of feeling the same amount of pleasure than when your skin is completely clear. And to me, I think that's just like such a beautiful and unique thing about our bodies. It brings up a sense of just awe for me that we're able to have those kinds of experiences. Often people with acne or without, we kind of wait around hoping to feel confident. Maybe one day in the future I'll feel confident. And we pin so much on that. When I'm confident, I can do this. And when I'm confident, this will happen for me. I think of confidence more as an act. It's something that we have to participate in, something that we have to create rather than something that we just wait around to magically fall into our laps, like out of the sky. Doing those, kind of combining those two things, trying to keep the focus on the pleasure that your body is capable of feeling and being willing to be vulnerable, to connect with your partner, to have those experiences, even though you're not feeling confident. I think that's the way that we build confidence. And ultimately, sex is supposed to be about connection. It's supposed to be about vulnerability. And without that vulnerability, there really isn't connection. And I know it's so challenging in those moments when you're not feeling self-conscious or you're not feeling confident, you're feeling very self-conscious. I know it's very easy for us to want to hide. That's not intimacy. Intimacy is really allowing our partners to see every part of ourselves. That's what creates that real connection.
That's such a great way to look at it. It doesn't matter what your body looks like. You can still feel pleasure. Whether you're dealing with acne, whether you're dealing with self-image issues, body dysmorphia, weight issues, this can apply to so many different facets that the human body can still feel that pleasure.
I also like to, for myself, I like to think about pleasure as an act of rebellion. Growing up as a woman, I've been taught my entire life all the ways that my body is not good enough, all the ways that I don't live up to what the standards are. And I've been taught to believe that I don't deserve pleasure. I don't deserve to feel good in my own body because my body doesn't look the way that supermodels and actresses look. For me, I can kind of have a little bit of fun with it. I want to choose to feel pleasure regardless. And I want to rebel against all that crap that I was taught. I'm going to have my own little personal revolution, party of one. I want to, like, it feels exciting to me to say, I choose to feel pleasure. Yeah, my body's not perfect. Yeah, I'm never going to look the way that, people look in magazines. I can choose to feel pleasure.
I love that. And it's just a simple mindset shift, right, Cris?
Let's look at that with depression, anxiety, and trauma. Because it's like we're sitting here, we choose that. That makes sense. But someone with crippling anxiety, depression, trauma, these types of things, how are they going to seek that pleasure? Like their psyche's not there. It's that mind, that body, that bedroom connection isn't there.
It's really important to talk about trauma. Unfortunately, such a huge percentage of people have experienced trauma, and it's something that often gets discounted and that people don't even recognize within themselves. Most people who've been through trauma tend to, what is it when you act like something's not that big of a deal?
Now I'm blanking. We're going to edit this.
Yeah, I use the word diminish.
Diminish is close. Oh my God, I've never had such a word fart before. So most people who have experienced trauma, unfortunately, tend to downplay it. I worked with a lot of trauma survivors, and I'll hear things, what happened to me, it was so long ago, happened to other things that have happened to people have been way worse, really downplay it and act like it's something that they should have gotten over. But when you've experienced trauma, you have learned that your body is not a safe place to be. And safety is so important for us being able to have great sex. Anybody who has experienced trauma, I highly recommend working with a therapist or a counselor one-on-one, so you really have that container to process the experience, to understand what happened to you, to develop more compassion for yourself. We also have a free guide that we give away to survivors. You can find it at vmtherapy.com/free. It is not meant to be a replacement for therapy. It offers like really practical tools that you can use to help sex feel safe again and start to feel pleasure in your own skin too.
I love that because, like you said, so many women and men, everybody, they experience trauma throughout their lives. It can really detract from how we feel in our own bodies. And for those people that say maybe they didn't have trauma, they're dealing with mental health issues, depression or anxiety, how can they start to work towards still being able to have a sex life while struggling with the mental health issues?
That is a really tricky situation. I mean, depression and anxiety, of course, impact your desire to be intimate. They impact your connection with your body. And what makes it even more frustrating and challenging is that the medications that so many people use rely on on to help their mental health can also have negative sexual side effects as well, like decreasing libido even more. It can just be so challenging. I really want to empathize with people who are going through that. It often feels you have to choose between your mental health and your libido, which is a completely unfair choice to put in front of somebody. I do highly recommend finding a trusted doctor to work with, because there are things that you can do, trying different medications, changing the dosage, changing the timing of the dosage. There are some supplements that have been shown to improve. And there's also some really great research around exercise too. Research finding that exercise for people who are experiencing depression and anxiety and people who are on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, that exercise can actually decrease those side effects and those impacts. Yet another reason to develop a healthy, joyful relationship with movement.
This has been such an incredible jam-packed talk that I think so many people are going to be able to get so much from, whether about opening up the conversation, moving through the trauma, asking for what you like. I think there's so many goodies in here, Vanessa. Now, before we finish up, I kind of want to end on a fun question, which is more of a personal one. For me, like I mentioned, like I felt like I was having pretty vanilla sex for a while, and I was bored, a mom, I have new kids, so I wasn't really feeling it. I just thought I had a little libido. Well, when I got into the book talk world, I got into the bookstagram world, and there's the spicy, the smutty, all of those type books. I really credit the improvement in my sex life to being like, oh, I didn't know I liked that. Maybe we can try this. And it really made me fall in love with sex for, I think, the first time in my life. And this is 15 years into my relationship with my husband. How have you seen the impact on book talk on sex?
Oh my God, it's been massive. I got to a point, I think it was about 2 years ago, where I was like, you know what? I think I have to read these books just for professional. And then I went down the rabbit hole. I read thousands and thousands of pages. My husband was making fun of me. You're carrying around these massive books everywhere. I could not peel myself away from it. So I totally get it. I think one of the main things that we're seeing is that it's helping you keep sex more top of mind. When you're reading a book, when you're reading a sexy scene, you're getting that stimulation in the moment. It's also great for kicking in a little bit of responsive desire too, because there is some stimulation there. You're keeping it top of mind. You're thinking about those scenes throughout the day. It's just naturally making sex be on your mind. Whereas most of us will say, it's like all day I'm just thinking about my to-do list. I'm like bouncing back and forth from all these different responsibilities, the mental load, the chores, all that kind of stuff. Just having that opportunity to bring sex into your thoughts is shockingly powerful. It's really beneficial in that way. There's also some really interesting research showing that when we anticipate having great sex, that is very motivating for us to want to seek our partner out and actually have that sex. I think it helps us with that anticipation aspect too. It gives us some ideas too. You're reading certain scenes, just like you were saying, I didn't know that was an option. Like I didn't know that was on the menu. It helps give us some ideas too. I do want to caution, the sex scenes in those books are not very realistic. They're a lot better than what I've seen in a lot of TV and movies and porn. There is more of an emphasis on female pleasure. Still a lot of going for like 10 rounds in a row with no break. They're still not entirely realistic. I do think that it can be a really interesting thing for women to check out.
Yeah, because it's the two sides of the same coin, right? On one side, it gets you top of mind. Oh, that's fun. Oh, maybe I like that. But on the other side, it can also shape unrealistic expectations. For an example, the other night, my husband, after doing bedtime for two kids, comes in and he's like, babe, I'm just too tired. I can't go into one of your crazy sex scenes I just don't have it in me right now. Did I just not read that part to you? Aren't you not excited about that? You're so right, is while it can be really great, on the other hand, it can set you up for expectations where it's like, if I'm not having 5 orgasms in every single session, then I'm doing it wrong.
Exactly. Most people don't go for multiple rounds. Most people don't have multiple orgasms. People don't have wings.
We're not having wings in the bedroom. This isn't happening. Unless we're into cosplay. That's your thing. Love that. All right. Well, this was a fun chat, Vanessa. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we loved it. Of course, in the show notes, we're going to put all the links to Vanessa's freebies, her courses, because we need to be learning about how to have good sex. If you want to learn about how to have good sex, go and check the show notes, but please make sure to go over and follow her and Xander on Instagram at Vanessa and Xander. Go and check out their podcast, Pillow Talks, because it is full of doable sex tips, practical relationship advice, hilarious and honest stories about what really goes on behind closed doors. That's it for us here at the Clear Skin Chronicles. We will see everybody next week.